Hey everyone, Kevin here. What I'm going to do today is build a 1080 Ti mining rig. I've got the ASUS overclocked edition, ASUS Strix. This process is fairly simple. I don't think anyone would have any problems going through this, even if you haven't built a computer before. But I will go through the steps, step by step, and show you exactly what you need to do. If I wasn't recording this, if I wasn't documenting this, I reckon maybe 20-30 minutes to get it all set up. Most of the time is actually, just setting things up, getting it out of the boxes and all that. But I do want to kind of explain each part when I'm doing it, so it will take a little bit longer. So I've got two just now. I've got two coming later today, and I've got two of these in my main PC just now. So my PSU can handle 6 1080 Ti's. This is a 1500 watt PSU, and a 1080 Ti can go up to 250 watts, but I will be underclocking them to about 70% power, 75% power. So this PSU will be able to handle 6 of them if I want. And that's something I might do in the future. Take the two out my main PC, put it onto the rig, and then I can put different cards. For example, when Volta comes out, or if I get different 1080 Ti's, whatever. So yeah, the process is fairly simple, and I'll just try and document everything as I go along. So without further ado, there we go. So first things first, the motherboard, the heart of everything here. This is the ASUS Z270E, and it is one of the most popular options. After building a few rigs with this, I can see why. It has everything that you would need. It's got, I don't know if you can see here, it's got 3 GPU ports here, but it's got a lot of X1 ports, so there's a total of 7 here, which means that you can put 7 graphics cards. But because you can use an adapter for the M2 port, it means that you can actually increase this and put 8 GPUs on this motherboard, and it's supported in the BIOS. And that's what I've actually got in my 1060 rigs. I've got 8 GPUs in each one. So here's what I've been doing. If I can get it open. What I've been doing is, when I get my motherboard, and you can see I'm strapped up now just for safety and all that, what I'm doing is doing this, turning it around, and I'm going to put the motherboard on top of this, and this is where I'm setting my motherboard on the rig. I'm just using this because I'm not using a case. A lot of people use cardboard, a lot of people use other things, but I'm just going to sit it there like so. So as you can see, here you've got your 3 main GPUs here, and then you've got your X1s. And using risers, I can put 7 here, and I can put an 8th in this M2 slot. If you're building using this one, make sure you put the hard drive in this M2 slot, not that one. And you've got your RAM here, your CPU there, your motherboard port, your CPU port. Now, one of the cool things about this is that there is a power switch and a reset switch here, or it's like a memory switch. With the power switch, you can turn it on and off. You don't need to buy a power button separately in order to turn it on and off. Because remember, if you were building this in a PC case, you'd push the power button. But you don't need to build that, because there is a little power button there to set it up. Now, as far as what's in the box here, you'll see a lot of different cables, etc. But you don't really need any. There's an SLI bridge there. There's a few other things here. These are the things you would use if you were building your main PC. But what I need here is this, is the little M2 risers. And I'm going to put one there, and I'm going to put one there. So these just go in here. And what this allows me to do is put in my hard drive. I'm actually going to be using an M2 hard drive rather than an SSD. In my opinion, it keeps things a little bit simpler. This one here is a little bit trickier because of the X1 slot next to it. Now, I don't really need anything else in that box, so I'm going to put that to the side. Now, as far as the M2 slot goes, this is the adapter I am talking about. I'll just show you this. So this is the adapter I'm talking about, and if I wanted to add 8 GPUs to this setup, which I don't think I will be because it's a 1080 Ti, I could slot this thing in here, and you know, it would just slot in here. Sorry, it's back to the front. Slot this in here like that, and I could put another GPU there, so that'd give me 8. But for this build, for this particular build, I won't need it, but I thought it was important to show you guys what it's for. So in the next part, I've got RAM, I've got the hard drive, and I've got the CPU. Now, as far as RAM goes, you don't really need much more than 4 gigabytes. Most people will recommend 4 gigabytes at most. At least. You could probably get away with less, but 4 gigabytes of DDR4. The speed I've got in this one is 2666. Apologise, the lighting's quite poor today. But you could get away, 4 gigabytes the minimum, but you could use more if you wanted to. So if I zoom in here, and you can see just kind of, you can see like that would be the wrong way. I normally pick this one just so it's a little bit, you know, further away. That's it in place. It actually clicks into place when you've pushed it in. You can see this part is clicked in. And just for reference, this is the brand that I got there, Ballistic. I mean, I don't know how much those matter because, you know, in my other builds I have Corsair RAM. You know, as long as you go with a half decent brand, I think you should be okay. So the next part here, which I'm going to do, and again, you can do these parts in any order you want. You could put the CPU on first. You could put the graphics cards on first if you really wanted to. It's kind of irrelevant, you know, what you do. It's really until you actually build it up and power it on, you know, that's what matters. Ideally, what you want to do though is we're going to be building this PC, but we won't be switching it on with the graphics cards yet. What the best thing to do is to switch it on, set up the BIOS, make sure everything is okay, and then attach all the graphics cards and then boot up. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion. Make sure that you've got, it makes it sure that you've got everything set up before you start adding graphics cards. Less things to go wrong. So this part here, what I'm going to do is put in the hard drive. So again, I've got the riser put in already. So I needed that to screw this down. As far as size goes, I've got 120 gigabytes. A lot of people say that you can get away with 64. Some people use more, but I think, you know, for the price, 120 is okay. It was about £40 or so for this, I think. So you can see I've got the RAM there, we've got the hard drive there, and everything is coming together. Now, CPU. As far as the CPU goes, well, again, this isn't something you want to be spending a lot of money on. The vast majority of people use a Pentium. I've got the Pentium G440. It's a fairly good one. It's fairly cheap. It's about £47 in the UK. And I think it's 47 watts it draws, so it's fairly economical, and it is so easy to set up. You'll be surprised at how easy to set it up it is. It really is unbelievable how easy it is to set up. So if I move my camera here, you should be able to see it. So this is how the box comes. You've got your heat sink here, and you've got your CPU tray at the top. So there's the CPU, and then if I get this open from one part, where are you? Okay, so you can see here, this is a heat sink, and you can see that there is thermal paste on there already, so you don't even have to buy thermal paste, it's on there already. So, time to put the CPU on. And this is fairly simple. Pull this back. This will pop the tray up. And what I'm going to do now is open up the CPU tray. Now, if I turn this around for you guys, you will see in the CPU, hopefully in the light, you will see in one section there is a little arrow. So there's a little arrow there, a little arrow down the bottom left there, and that basically goes to there, and you can see it here. The arrow here shows you exactly where this goes so that you don't make any mistakes. And all you do is set the CPU on, and we want to get this under here, and then you push it under, and when you do that, this just pops off. So you can put this in your motherboard box now. So now what we want to do is put on the heatsink, and this is going to keep the CPU cool. Now you could, if you wanted to, go out and buy a better heatsink. You go out and buy a much better one. Can you guys hear that? Hopefully you can. I'm getting a fire installed today and the guy's drilling down the stairs, but hopefully you guys can't hear that. There's a very good chance you can hear that. So as I was saying, you could buy a better heatsink. You could buy a better heatsink, but there's kind of no point. This is a very low power CPU, and you're not going to be needing a huge heatsink. The one that comes with it, the stock one, is more than enough. So if I jump over to my overhead camera, yeah. So what we want to do first, this is the way that I do it, is get the CPU fan on. And it's this one here, CPU fan. It actually says on it there. In fact, I'll take my webcam away for a second. Don't need that. You've got CPU fan, CPU opt. Now this is for general fans. This one at the front here, that's for general fans, or if you were using all-in-one cooler, you could plug it in there. But it's this one, the white one, white to white. And what I'm going to be doing is just put it in, 4 pins. Apologies if it's a little bit fidgety here, but I am doing this in front of a mic and an overhead camera. Makes things a little bit trickier for things like this. So there's the fan on. Now the heatsink is painfully easy to put on. You'll see there's 4 holes here. See the 4 holes? And the system they've got set up is really straightforward. What I do, in fact I'll turn it this way, give a little bit more room. You get it attached to the holes like that, and then it's just a matter of pushing them down, and it's set up so that it just clicks into place. Once you've done that, all you have to do is, you know, just kind of tuck the fan in a little bit, tidy things up a little bit as best as you can. At this point, what I would normally do is take this motherboard and put it over to my mining rig, and then start connecting the cables to the PSU, and then start connecting the graphics cards. But obviously this is an instruction video, and I want to show you guys what I'm doing. So if I go back to my overhead camera, here we go. So this is my power supply, Kolink. It's all my other ones I've got are EVGA, but I've went for the Kolink this time. Now it goes without saying, you want, when you set this on your rig, you want the fan to face up the way. You don't want the fan to face down the way. This is an exhaust. You need to exhaust all that heat. Now what I normally do is, when I set it on my rig, is I just kind of set it on a bit of cardboard like that. I don't think it's actually necessary, but you know, it just gives you that little bit of added security, I think, you know, when it's actually sitting on something. So as far as power goes, we need to power the motherboard from the power supply, and to do that we need this cable. We need this, this is a 24 pin, if you can get it here, 24 pin and a 6 pin, and then this one is 24 pin together. Now this one isn't actually labeled. Normally your power supply would say like ATX or power, you'd say SATA there, you'd say VGA or PCI Express, and these two would say CPU. But this one doesn't have this, but it's fairly easy to work out. You can see here, you've got a little notch at the top there, and this corresponds to this, which you squeeze to get back out, and you just slot it in, and slot it in. Very, very easy. So now what we do is we take this cable, and again, I would normally be doing this over at the rig. Now this part here, what you need to do, see, you can see it here. If you slide it on under it and then just push it up, it makes a 24 pin, and this will allow me. The reason is just that this is designed this way is for backwards compatibility. With older motherboards, and that's it. That's it connected. So if you zoom out a little bit, you should be able to see this one here. See that there? That is known as the CPU plug. So that's the CPU port. That's where you're getting power. And this corresponds to an 8 pin here. So what I'm going to do, 8 pin into the power supply. And it's normally kind of designed as 2 4 pins. If you can, then it's focusing on the wrong thing there. Now the wires are getting in the way here. But yes, what we're going to do, again, try and get the right way. So I've got my PSU here, and I've got the motherboard being powered, and I've got the CPU being powered. If I had a 2.5 inch SSD, I could power it using one of these 6 pin SATA connections at the side. I could also power a 3.5 inch hard drive, but that would be pointless. You really don't want a spindle hard drive, because you will be restarting your computer a lot, and you know, for the price of it, just get a very cheap fast SSD. It makes more sense. I don't need to connect anything like that to a hard drive here, because my hard drive is connected directly to the motherboard, but I do need to connect some additional cables. For the graphics cards, my 1080 Ti requires 2 8 pins. Now on my main PC, what I have is 2 8 pins going directly to the VGA. So I've got 2 of these. So I've got like 2 of these. If I can bring the camera around, these would power one 1080 Ti. 2 cables, 2 8 pins to 2 8 pins. But my power supply also comes with a 1 8 pin to 2 8 pin. Now these are 6+2s, but they work in the same way. You just hold them together, and this can power one graphics card as well, rather than 2 cables. Now the advice by many manufacturers is to use two separate cables because you can send more power, but it shouldn't be a problem for me to use one 8 pin to 2 8 pins, because I will be underclocking them, so I don't think that will be a major problem. The other thing I need to plug into the SATA area is the SATA cable here. Now this is, this will just go into somewhere like that, and I've got 4 SATA connections. Now these are used to power the PCI Express risers, which I'll be attaching to the graphics cards, but I'll talk about that in a second, just to show you what these are for. But at this point, what I'm going to do is take the PSU and take the motherboard and take it over to my mining rig area, and I'll set it down, and then what I'll do is I'll start looking at my graphics cards. So the motherboard and the PSU are sitting on the shelf ready to be connected. What I need to do now is get my graphics cards out of the boxes. So I've got 2 of my graphics cards out just now. I've got another 2 arriving today, and they might be here in about 30 minutes or so, but I'll just put this one to the side. So this is the ASUS Strix 1080 Ti. It's quite a big 1080 Ti, it's 2.5 expansion slots instead of 2. And you will need to take this off the bottom for the PCI Express slot. And at the top here, you can see the two 8-pin connectors. At the other side, what you've got is two connections for a bridge. So if you were using an SLI bridge to connect both of these together, then you would use that. And essentially what would happen is that they would sit like this and the bridge would go between here with the power here and the bridge there. As I noted earlier, you can connect one 8-pin to two 8-pins. So the two 8-pins could go into my graphics card, but I'll do that with my other ones. For these ones, I'm going to do 8-pin to 8-pin. So there will be two cables going to each graphics card. And you'll see that these are actually 6 and 2s, but all you have to do is just make sure that they all click in like that. It's very, very simple. So it is time to look at the risers. This is how we're going to connect the graphics cards to the motherboard, and it works fairly simply. Let me see. So what you do is you plug this end, if I can get it the right way. So this is how it's going to transfer data. So you get the graphics card in here, and the data will go, and then you put this into your motherboard, and you just start slotting them into your motherboard like that. You can put them in an X1, an X4, X8, X16 slot. It doesn't matter where you put them. Now there's various versions of this. This one is version 007. I've actually got 008S coming, and that one's different. This one is powered using a 6-pin to SATA connector, but the one that I've ordered has SATA there, and then it's got a 4-pin and a 6-pin, so it gives you many different ways to power it, and it also means that you don't need an extension cable like this. But the version I've got just now, it requires 6-pin to SATA, and if you can hear this, I'll put this up to the mic. Basically it clicks, and that's how this works. You click this out, you slide your graphics card into it, and then you just click it back into place, and you're good to go. Now it's very simple to use. The only thing I would say about this is be careful when connecting the SATA cables. Many people advise only using 2 SATA connections per cable. So the most cables you get in your power supply are, you maybe get one cable that's got 4 connections. Well, if that is the case, only connect 2 to the SATA cables. So one SATA cable coming from your power supply could power 2 risers. There's a lot of people out there with scare stories saying that when you connect a 3rd or a 4th, you're sending too much electrical power and it can melt the cables and it can cause problems. For the price of a cable, don't take the risk. You might be okay with, if you've got a 1050 Ti or a 1060, maybe you'd be okay because there's less power going through them. But again, why take the risk? So at this point, all I have to do is go over and start building everything up and attaching everything to the shelf. So from a hardware point of view, I'm pretty much complete at this point. I've attached the graphics cards to the top of the shelf using cable ties, and it can be a little bit tricky doing that, especially if you're doing it yourself. If there's 2 people, all you need is one person to hold it and the other to tie it up. It's very, very simple. When you're doing it yourself, you need to use a box or something to sit the graphics card on so that you can tie it on. It's a little bit fidgety, but you will get it. Underneath, I've got all the risers attached. I've got all the SATA and VGA, the PCI Express 8-pin connectors connected to the power supply. So this part of it is fairly simple. The cables are a little bit of a mess, but it works. I could use cable ties to tidy things up, but because, in my experience with the other rigs, you find yourself always kind of tweaking things and changing things around. So I don't think cable ties are necessary. The thing is, when you're doing this, you will run into the odd problem. You will make mistakes, and today's build is no different. The power supply here, now I normally go for the EVGA power supply. You can see the boxes behind me for the EVGA T2. Those ones are 1000 watt power supplies. This one, the Continuum, is 1500 watts, but it's a lot cheaper than the EVGA and Corsair equivalents, which were about 450. At this price though, you do, get some, you have to make some sacrifices. The cables are a little bit shorter than they are with the EVGA power supply, so I had to kind of make sure that the cables were stretched around and just make sure that everything was plugged in okay. The other thing is that this doesn't actually come with a plug. Now, when I did a video about this power supply the other day, I noted that it doesn't come with a C19 plug, but I had one. Well, that was a mistake. This isn't a C19 plug. I made the mistake of not ordering a C19 plug when I bought the power supply because I thought I had it. This one is basically just a 5 amps, and this will do a lower powered power supply. For a higher power supply like this, you need something that's like 8 to 16 amps. The one that I've ordered this morning from Amazon is, I think it's 13 amps, and it's coming in a couple of hours. So what that means is, at this point, I need to play the waiting game, but that's okay because I've got a couple of hours now. I can clear out all the boxes, and when this power adapter comes, just a matter of plugging it into the power supply, plugging it into my surge protector, switching it on, setting up the BIOS, and then just downloading all the drivers, installing Windows, etc. It's fairly straightforward at this point. I've done the hard work. So yeah, I'll catch up with you when that arrives. It is the following day. My plug did arrive about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I could power on the computer and I could install everything and get it all up and running. As it stands right now, I am making money. So at this point, with the hardware being built, if you've watched up to now and you've got everything that you need, I hope I've helped you. And I'm sure that those of you who have built PCs before know what to do next as far as installing Windows and things like that. But I'm going to do a little bit more talking. I want to, just talk about the process of what I did after I built it, as far as the software and installation side. And if you keep watching, hopefully I can share some advice and some tips that even experienced users might find useful. A lot of the problems that I've faced with, setting up mining rigs, it just comes from trial and error, troubleshooting and running into problems. And then, when something arises, what's wrong. So before I do that, I'll just quickly show you this camera. And what you're looking at just now is my whole mining rig setup, my Amazon Basics shelf, 5 levels. And apart from the top level, I've got a mining rig on 4 levels. The first 3 rigs are 1060s, 8 1060s, and the top one is 4 1080 Ti's, which is what I set up. Now you can see in the monitor there that I have NiceHash, I've got MSI Afterburner, and I've got some Windows. Now NiceHash isn't actually running just now. I have been tweaking it, and at this stage, I'm still messing about with things. I'm testing NiceHash, seeing how it performs. I'm testing Awesome Miner. I'm testing different mining pools through Awesome Miner. In fact, if I can show you here, yep, you should be able to see that. So what I've got here, my main PC is off just now. Because I'm recording, I need to use the 1080 Ti's. Rig 1, you can see I've got it explained on Awesome Miner. You can see I've got Rig 1, Rig 2, Rig 3. They're all 1060s, pallet jewel fans, and Rig 4. And right now it's doing Mining Pool Hub. I can go do NiceHash or a hash pool, all these different ones through that. At the moment it's 1845 per day. Earlier it was like £20, 21, goes down to 17. It goes up and down, as you guys know. And you can see below I've got the graphics cards. They're all around a similar level. Now, one of the things I like about Awesome Miner is the fact that I can adjust things here. And you can see that I have underpowered the graphics cards at 72%. And, I will be tweaking these and I will be messing around to see, if I can get the most out of the card as far as performance and saving electricity. So I'll turn that off just now. Okay, so what did I do? Well, when the plug came, I powered it on, and one of the first things you do is check the BIOS, etc. But I know from experience from these motherboards that what I ran into with the problem of these motherboards is that you can update the BIOS through the internet, the Ethernet cable, directly from the BIOS, but it doesn't always seem to give you the latest version. So what I do is install Windows first. So as far as installing Windows goes, you better put it onto a USB drive. Refer to my previous video when I show you how to set up a Windows installation flash drive. It's very, very easy. It takes about 10 minutes. You download Windows Media, I think it's called Windows Media Tool or something. You set it up. I'll link to the video so you can check it out. And you know, when you plug it in, it just runs Windows. You just, if it doesn't run it automatically, just go into the BIOS using delete or F2 or FA, whatever it is, and I'll flash up the message, and then make sure that this is the priority when it boots. But it should detect it, and it should boot when you put in your Windows USB flash drive or DVD drive if you use that. Now, an important thing to note is when you are installing Windows, it's okay to keep the power cables, the 8-pin VGA PCI Express cables from the power supply to your graphics cards, but don't connect the risers. If you connect the risers, what you're doing is setting up Windows with the graphics cards attached. And I can tell you from experience that creates problems. I did this before where I had left some of the risers in, which means that the graphics card was transferring data. It means that the motherboard can see it, the computer can see it. And when you do that, you can run into lots of little problems during the installation. I got like a runtime error, all these different things. Take them off. Take the risers off until you've installed Windows. Here's what I do. Install Windows, download the latest version of the BIOS for your motherboard, go back to the BIOS area, update the BIOS, then once you've adjusted the BIOS, then you go in and then you can attach your risers again, download the graphics cards, etc. But if you go back to the Windows installation process, very, very simple. Just a few things. What I do is I don't put a password on it, so that if I need to restart, it just logs on automatically. Just little things like that. You don't need all the ads and all that kind of thing. Just try and keep it as limited as possible. You don't need a product key either. So if you want to activate Windows, you can, but there's really no reason to. I've got Windows activated on my main PC, but you can continue to use it with it, you know, not being activated anyway. So it's kind of pointless for a mining rig. So you install Windows, you log on. And it's important to know at this stage what you've got connected is a keyboard, a mouse, an HDMI cable or VGA, whatever, to go to your monitor, and an Ethernet cable. So you've got your keyboard, mouse, HDMI, VGA, you know, to go to the monitor, and an Ethernet cable for internet. Now you might have a motherboard that supports Wi-Fi, but it's still safer to set things up initially with Ethernet so that you can go online and set things up easily. At that point, what I do is go on and I download the BIOS, and then I just restart the computer and I go back into the BIOS area. Now, here's the thing. If you guys want to make money from mining, you need to become accustomed to modifying things in the BIOS. Now, even if you've never adjusted anything in the BIOS before, it's fairly easy because there's lots of videos out there, lots of tutorials, and those videos will show you exactly what you need to do. Now, I don't want to go into all of this in too much detail in this video because everyone watching this will have a different motherboard, and I want to keep this like a, you know, a kind of general video rather than specific to, you know, this particular motherboard. What I recommend doing is going onto YouTube, typing in the name of your motherboard, and then entering mining. So I have the ASUS Z270A, and this is very popular with miners. And I type in ASUS Z270-A space mining, and there's like 4 or 5 videos. Sorry, I need a drink of water. There's like 4 or 5 videos that break down exactly what you need to do. So what do you need to do? Well, there's kind of common, you know, although the BIOS area and the setup is different for each motherboard, there are common things that you need to do. For example, you need to set your PCI Express settings from auto to Gen 2. You want to enable 4G if you've got more than 4 graphics cards. That will, you know, allow Windows to see more graphics cards. There's power settings you need to adjust as well. For example, after power, it's normally defaulted to just stay off. So if there was a surge, you know, if you tripped your electricity or there was a surge or your power cut off for any reason, then the PC would shut off. And by default, it doesn't switch back on. But you can set it so that auto power's on, so that if there's a surge, anything happens, you could be out for the day, you could be away holiday for a week, it will switch back on and it will start running automatically. This is key. You know, remember what you're trying to do here is set up a system that never shuts down, that never automatically upstarts. Everything ticks over automatically. This is what you're trying to do here. So again, at the BIOS area is very, very important. I really can't stress that enough. You need to get the settings and you need to get it right, because if you don't, you can create a lot of problems and it's hard to troubleshoot those problems. And a lot, you know, if you set everything up in the BIOS, you know that's sorted. And I will give you an example of this. Yesterday, I'd set up everything perfectly. Or so I thought. You know, this is my 4th rig with this motherboard. And at this point, I go into the BIOS, I change this. I know exactly what I need to do. But I got a little bit cocky, and at the end of the day, human error can happen. I had changed the PCI Express to Gen 2, you know, in all the places except one. You know, there's like 3 or 4 different places you need to do it on this motherboard. Change it from auto to Gen 2. And one of the ones I didn't change it to was the speed. So it went to auto, and what happened was that the speed of one of the GPUs, it was going like 100 megahertz instead of like 1800. And I couldn't work it out, and they were all underperforming, and I didn't know what was going wrong. It was crashing a lot as well. And I spent a few hours and I was like, right, I need to go back to the BIOS and make sure I've got everything. I went through every single step again, and that's where I saw the problem. So yes, I know I'm going on about this, but really make sure you're comfortable in the BIOS area. Change things around to, you know, and follow the instructions from everyone else, and make sure you set it up correctly for your motherboard for mining. This isn't set up for a gaming rig. This isn't a general office PC. This is for mining. So you've installed Windows. You've set up your BIOS correctly. After you've done that, when you restart a computer, put those risers back in. You want Windows to see the graphics cards now. Now, when you go back in, you need to go to the device manager. So if hopefully you can see this. This is, you know, just things I've got here. I'm getting ahead of myself. So when you right click down at Windows, you'll see there, device manager, right click, go to device manager and go up to display adapters. Now you can see I've got integrated graphics. You don't have to enable integrated graphics, but I think it's good to have it enabled. You can do that through the BIOS. And then I've got my 2 1080 Ti's. This is my main PC. This is what I've got just now. So that is what I recommend you do right away when you log on. And what you should see is something like Microsoft display adapter. And it'll be like an exclamation sign. So you've installed Windows. You've sorted your BIOS. That's all good. And when you log on, you'll have like display adapter, and you should have integrated graphics, then display adapter for each of the graphics cards, Microsoft display adapter, and a warning sign. And what you need to do at this point is go and install the drivers. Now, if I bring this back up, I apologize. This is a 34-inch monitor, so it's a little bit skewed here, a little bit stretched. Now, depending on if you get AMD or NVIDIA, but you can download it from your website. I've installed the ones from AMD, the ones from ASUS, but I found that the ones that I've ended up settling on are the ones directly from NVIDIA. And what you have to do is just find your graphics card and then download. So that's all you have to do there. So when you've installed the graphics card, it probably needs to restart at that point. When you restart, you should see all the graphics cards. Now, what I do at this point is go back to the motherboard website, in this case for ASUS, and I download things that are relevant. You don't need the audio drivers. You know, that's something that most people recommend disabling in the BIOS. You download the LAN. You download any custom chipset drivers. You download anything else that you think is relevant. But again, remember, you don't need a lot of these things. You need the essentials. You need the Ethernet driver. You need the chipset driver. You've already installed the BIOS at this point. And yeah, you got that. At this point, what you have is a functioning PC. And there's a lot of other things that you can do. Like when you set up Windows, Windows now is full of crap. You've got all these ads and SodaStream, all these different games in the start menu. At this point, what I go through is I delete them all and I remove them all. I don't need them. And then I start downloading things that I need. Now, you probably saw it there when I changed to my browser. MSI Afterburner. This is what I use to modify my graphics cards. And by that means it allows me to overclock, it allows me to underclock. Now, there's many different versions of this available. ASUS have GPU tweak, but I found with GPU tweak, it was crashing a lot. The app just wasn't stable. I've reverted to MSI Afterburner, and it's, you know, the whole interface is a pain in the ass. It's like designed for a 14-year-old, but it works and it's stable and it doesn't really crash. And you know, you can tweak things. So as far as tweaking your under powering or overpowering your graphics card, if you want to overclock or underclock, it is trial and error. You need to, you know, push it as far as your card can go and then dial it back. I'll do another video about that, but if you're just trying to get up and running, just run your cards at 100%, just default, and then you can go and tweak things later. Now, afterwards, what you'll want to do is install your mining software. You saw that I had nice hash installed there. I've got awesome miner on my main PC. I installed all the, you know, the mining applications that I needed, like MSI Afterburner or GPU Z. So this application here, this one here, this gives you a lot of information that you don't get elsewhere. You can check, you can see the GPU core clock. Right now, it's, you know, it's not being pushed, so it's low. And you can change, oh sorry, that's integrated graphics, that's why it's low. So you can see your integrated graphics, you can see your core clock, etc. There's a lot of useful things that you can do with that. So that is something I recommend downloading again, but that, you know, they can do this later. This is all really just about analysis. Now again, I talked about this when I was talking about the BIOS. There's a lot of things you want to do to set up your computer so that it doesn't turn off. Now, I'm assuming you guys are installing Windows at this point. There are like Linux-based systems that you can do, but you know, I'm talking about installing Windows. With Windows, you can set it up correctly so that it runs just as efficiently as Linux-based systems, more or less. But you need to kind of adjust things. So there's a few things that you can do. So I'm going to jump over to my monitor again. Close those tabs. I don't need those. Right, I'm just trying to get things back in the game. So you can see what's good. These are actually all the installation clips. I recorded these when I was recording the videos earlier, just so I could show you guys what was happening. You can see I've actually got a nice hash running. I'm still mining. I've got one GPU with recording. I've got one with nice hash. So there's a few things you want to do. There's lots of, as far as optimization goes, there's a lot of things you can do to make sure that your rig runs correctly. But I just want to run through some of the ones that I do. And there's no doubt about it, I'm going to miss out some things here. So type in View Advanced Settings. You saw that there. View Advanced System Settings. It will bring you here. And you go to Performance Settings. So here, let Windows choose what's best for my computer. No. So you can see I've not changed this yet. What you need to do, adjust for best performance. This disables Aero. It disables a lot of things that just don't add anything. This is something I should have done on my main PC a long time ago. So apply, and that will give, you know, it when you're making changes like this, you know, it's a game of inches almost. You know, if you can squeeze a little bit more power out your computer, you'll make more money. So that's View Advanced Settings, Performance, and then just, you know, disable things that you don't need. So other thing, power. Power is very important. If you type in power down here, power and sleep settings. Can you guys see that? Yes, you can. Oops, what's going on here? Right. It's because I've got my Windows. I've got right. What I need to do just now is disable no Windows splits. That's because I'm using Display Fusion. Right. I'll make this larger. Right. So we're in power and sleep now. When you set up Windows for the first time, and what most people have in their PCs is something like after 15 minutes, like that, turn it off. You don't want that. You'll have sleep after 1 hour, after 30 minutes. These are settings that you always get in a laptop, and it makes sense in a laptop, but you want your rig to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and even leap years. So you want to set the screen and the sleep to never. Don't turn anything off. If you want to save, what I do with my monitor is I turn it off onto standby, or I turn the plug off. So let it run. It doesn't need a monitor attached to run. Take away the monitor, but as far as the screen goes, as far as the sleep, just never switch it off. You control when it goes off and on by manually closing things down. So at the right hand side here, additional power settings. So we've got additional power settings. Now, it doesn't matter what you change, whether you've got balance or high performance. I've got high performance here, but what you need to do is go to change plan settings. You can see never, and go down to change advanced power settings. So this will bring up this. Now, here you've got high performance. Now, see if you go to power saver, you can see what it normally has got there, setting 20 minutes, turn the hard disk off. You don't want that. Just change whatever you can see. I've changed balance to 60 minutes. I've got it set to never. So you put it down to 0, never turn off the hard disk. And it's the same for PCI Express. You want to turn that off. Now, if I go to the power saver mode, you will see that it's normally set at maximum power settings. Right. So what you do is you go into that and you put off. That's what you need to do. So high performance is what I'm using. Turn off hard disk, never. PCI Express, off. You don't need that there. As I said, there's probably lots and lots of other ways that you can make your computer more efficient and things like that. But really, these settings are just about not restarting your computer. And on that subject, on the subject of not restarting your computer, go down to the search bar, type in services.msc. You'll see it here, services desktop app. And what we need to do here is scroll down. And Windows Update, right. So what you need to do here, change it to disabled. It will probably be on automatic. What I used to do always was set it to manual, but even at manual, what it will do is try and download updates in the background, and then if you haven't restarted it, every few weeks it'll just restart itself trying to help you to install them, but you don't want that. Disable it. Now, what that means is when you go to Windows Updates, see if I try to check for updates here, it doesn't work. So just remember, if you do want to update Windows, and you do need to do that, when I installed Windows yesterday, after I set up the graphic drivers, etc., and before I turned off the Windows Update, I manually installed all the updates, and then I turned it off. And every few weeks, every few months, I will install an update that is important. But right now, because it's set to off, I can't change it. But if I had to change that to manual, then I could update again. But keep it at disabled. So again, services, just type it down there, services.msc. It will come up here, and you can disable it. So one final tip for setting up your Windows computer for a mining rig. Go down and type in run. And you can see this here. Hopefully you guys can see that. I've typed in shell and then semicolon startup. And a shout out to Donnie. Thanks for the tip on this. This is a great tip. Push OK. And what this does is bring up all your startup programs. Now, the reason that we want this is what you can do is just drag and drop any application that you want. You know, you could drag and drop, for example, say for some reason I wanted Firefox to always load up. You drag it there. When the computer restarts, Firefox is loaded. Now, I don't want that, so I'll just delete that. But this is very, very handy. For example, if I turn this off here, you saw, if I can get it, Awesome Miner. So there's Awesome Miner. Now, Awesome Miner actually has settings. If I go to the settings area, Awesome Miner has a setting here. Auto start when Windows starts, sorry. Now, if I can change that to... Is nice hash there? Where's nice hash? Have they got nice hash? No, I can't find it. With nice hash, it has an option so that when you load up the app, it always starts mining, but it doesn't have an option to automatically start the app when you load into Windows. Now, again, on the subject of Windows, like I said earlier, if you have a password, you know, password protected your screen, which might be necessary, bear in mind the fact that when your computer restarts, it will stop, and a lot of apps won't be loaded until you load in, you know, once you've logged into Windows. But I'll go back to my monitor briefly. So again, you type in run, and then you type in shell semicolon startup, and it will bring up this page. Just drag and drop. It will create a shortcut to an application or whatever, and just put it in there, and this one, what it does is I've got nice hash. I don't need to use Awesome Miner because that automatically does it itself through the app. I've got MSI Afterburner remote server, and that allows me to adjust the GPU settings through this computer. I can do it through Awesome Miner, so that's why that is there. And yeah, hopefully you guys will find it useful. If there's any apps that you need to automatically run, you know, any mining app, any tweaking app, anything that isn't automatically loading right away, drop it in there, run, and then shell semicolon startup. So I know this video is going on, guys, but I just wanted to share those tips because I know a lot of you guys will find them very, very useful. So at this point, well, hopefully you've got a better understanding of how to build a mining rig. I didn't run into any problems. You know, Windows is set up for 4 graphics cards anyway, but because I enabled 4G in the BIOS, I could easily take 2 out my main PC and attach them, and it would just run. Everything's set up, it's good to go. I can put up to 8 GPUs on that motherboard. Very, very simple. So I hope you found this video useful, guys. I hope you've learned something. There's probably a lot of things I've missed out, I know that, because there's so much involved as far as installation and things like that. The hardware side especially, I hope you guys have found it useful. If you've got any questions about it though, you know, if there's anything I've missed, you can put it down in the comment area and I will do my best to answer you or point you in the right direction. So my closing thoughts on all of this is that mining rigs, you know, setting them up, the hardware side, it's not that difficult. I don't think it's that difficult. If you built a computer before, you know how to build a mining rig. The only difference is putting a riser onto the graphics card. That's it, and making sure you've got enough power in your power supply. But as far as installing things, software things, it is relatively easy. But when things go wrong, a lot can go wrong because there's so many things that can go wrong. It could be the power supply, it could be the riser, that, you know, a cheap part that could go wrong. It could be the RAM, it could be anything. But you do learn what's wrong over time. For example, I made one of the mistakes I made with my first mining rig was that I hadn't pushed the power cables in enough. They'd come out just a little bit, and what that meant was I was getting error code 43 and the graphics cards weren't being recognized. When I pushed everything back in, everything was working. And you do find out things like that over time. You know, now I know when I see error code 43, check all the cables, yep, everything is good to go. But really, my best advice would be, if you run into any problems, you know, backstep, go backwards. Okay, did I do this? Did I do that? Did I do that correctly? Like last night, I spent a couple of hours trying to, like, why does this keep crashing? I went back to the BIOS, I realized I had skipped a step. I hadn't set one of the PCI Express settings from auto to Gen 2, and it's easy to do. Human error, you know, it doesn't matter how many mining rigs you've built, you will make a silly mistake. And then you throw into the mix the fact that Windows can be very problematic sometimes. So thanks for watching, guys. I've got my rigs running. They are making me money right now, tucking away in the background with their flashing lights. And yeah, I mean, it does take you time to set up. It does take you time to set everything up. But once it's all set up, the key thing is tweaking things and just maintaining everything and making sure it's running okay. So if you're following this video with the hope of building this yourself, I wish you all the best of luck. But if there's anything that I didn't clarify or maybe I've missed something, please do leave a comment in the comment area and I'll do my best to help you guys. I'm not going to claim that I'm the biggest expert on this, but I do have 4 rigs now and they are all running okay. I've run into some problems. I'm going to run into more. At this stage, I'm going to just tweak things and sort things out. But if there's any way that I can help you guys, please do let me know. If you haven't already, subscribe, like the video, share the video, all that good stuff. And I'll speak to you all very soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers, guys. Take care.